Have you ever had that terrifying nightmare where you show up at your own funeral? Well, imagine waking up one morning, grabbing the day's newspaper, sipping your tea, and then bam! There you are, smiling back at yourself from an obituary column. Dead, buried, gone. Except you're very much alive, scratching your head and wondering, wait, who approved this plot twist in my life? That, my friends, is exactly what happened to our main character. And trust me, things only get crazier from there. Our story begins with a 26-year-old clerk named Joseph Jonathan Kofi Kuma, but everyone calls him Jojo. Probably because saying all those names in a single breath is an Olympic sport. Jojo is just living his life, minding his business, when one day he stumbles upon the most bizarre piece of news, his own obituary. Yes, according to the universe and the newspapers, Jojo is 6 feet under, being mourned in his hometown, Anoati. Now, most people would freak out. Some might even take advantage of this, like disappear and start a new life in Miami. But not Jojo. Our man rolls up his sleeves and says, "No way, you are not burying me while I'm still breathing." He immediately sets out on a mission to stop his own funeral. Talk about a quest for survival, literally. The journey back to Anoati is no small feat. If you've ever traveled up country during Ghana's 70s and 80s era, you know what that means. Dodgy roads, chaotic lorries, and passengers who act like they own the bus conductor. But Jojo braves it all, because how embarrassing would it be to show up late to your own burial? Finally, he arrives at Anoati, and you can imagine the look on everyone's faces. Aunties clutching their chest, uncles muttering prayers, kids screaming because to them, this is straight out of a juju horror film. Jojo shuts it all down. "Guys, relax. I'm alive. Stop digging that hole." You'd think that after pulling off this miracle, life would finally smile at Jojo. Nope. The man barely escapes being buried alive only to face his next great challenge, convincing his bureaucratic boss that he's still alive. At first, Jojo assumes this will be easy. Write an affidavit, attach a picture, boom, you're good, right? Wrong. This is the civil service, ladies and gentlemen. And in civil service, nothing is simple. If you've ever stood in line for a simple form only to be sent back for a passport photo, then for a photocopy, then for a signature that can only be obtained on a full moon. Yeah, that's Jojo's life now. But Jojo is a hustler. If life gives him a death certificate, he makes a career change. So, from a clerk, Jojo decides to become an electrician, fixing air conditioners and repairing electrical gadgets to survive. And guess what? He's actually good at it. Soon, he's moving around town, fixing things, and breaking a few hearts along the way.
Totes my goats.
Now, Jojo doesn't walk this journey alone. He's got George, his trusty partner in crime. Together, they navigate Accra's buzzing life, hopping from one job to another, and yes, from one relationship to another. And this is where things get juicy.
Legendary!
One day, Jojo finds himself entangled in the life of Captain Ben Tuo, a military big shot with more ego than common sense. How do these two meet? Through a lady, of course. Laura, the woman who introduces Jojo as her cousin, but is definitely sharing more than cousinly affection with him. And Ben Tuo? He's the kind of man who thinks every woman in Ghana belongs to him. But surprisingly, instead of World War III breaking out over Laura, Jojo and Ben Tuo end up becoming pals. Men, right?
Bro.
If the first part of the story was all about Jojo's chaotic youthful adventures, the second part is about growth. Our boy finally starts acting like a man who's tired of chasing women and paperwork. Enter Karl, a German tourist Jojo meets at a drinking pub. The two hit it off instantly, and before you know it, they're traveling across Ghana, having the time of their lives. Road trips, sightseeing, drinking, you name it. But amidst all the fun, Jojo meets Mina, a laboratory technician. And Mina isn't like the others. She's the one who makes Jojo think, maybe it's time to settle down. And eventually he does. The story takes us through their relationship, their struggles, and their love in a changing Ghanaian society.
That's love, bitch.
Now, while Jojo is out there trying to make a living and find love, Ghana is going through its own drama. This was the late 70s and early 80s, a time of military juntas, coups, political arrests, student unrest, and a struggling economy. The book gives us glimpses of this tension. The arrest of Dr. Mante, a university lecturer who vanishes into political prison without trial, demonstrations in the streets, and a population trying to survive despite everything falling apart. And yet life goes on. People still party. They attend festivals like the Okyere deer hunt in Winneba, Durbars in Kumasi, naming ceremonies and night outs in Accra. There's even a tour of Ghana's landmarks like the Tema Harbor and the Akosombo Dam, which were big deals back then. By the end of the book, Jojo has gone from being a clerk declared dead to an electrician fixing air conditioners to a man who finally settles down and starts a family. It's a wild ride, funny, messy, very human. So, what's this book that starts with a man trying to stop his own funeral and ends with him building a life in the middle of Ghana's political storms? Permit for Survival by Bill Marshall, or, as it's now called in its reprint, Brother Man. I'll be honest with you, when I saw that opening, I was hooked. A man traveling to stop his own burial? That's not just a hook, that's a fishing net. It promised adventure, suspense, and pure drama. And to be fair, the beginning delivered exactly that. It was funny, it was bizarre, and it made me think of Amos Tutuola's Palm Wine Tapster, though without all the supernatural weirdness. But here's the thing. After Jojo successfully stops his funeral, the pace slows down. The high-energy chaos fizzles out, and the story becomes more of a slice-of-life narrative. A young man's journey through work, love, and survival in Ghana during tough times. It's not bad, but if you were expecting non-stop craziness, you might feel a little let down. That said, what the book lacks in sustained suspense, it makes up for in social commentary. Bill Marshall captures Ghana at a fascinating turning point, culturally, politically, economically. Through Jojo's life, we see the changing perception of beauty being fat was no longer the ultimate sign of attractiveness. The shift from extended families to nuclear families and the early waves of women's empowerment as women demanded a stronger voice in relationships and society. I also appreciate that the book doesn't turn into a history lecture. Yes, the political tension is there, the coups, the arrests, the demonstrations, but Bill doesn't dwell on it. He strikes a good balance between the chaos of the times and the ordinary joys of life. People still go out, fall in love, attend festivals, and find happiness even when the country is falling apart. And then there's the writing style. The point of view shifts between first person and an omniscient narrator, which at first feels odd, but it works because it gives us different angles of Jojo's life. The chapters feel like individual stories, like beads on a string, but they all tie together to paint a picture of a society in transition. One last thing I loved? The humor. It's subtle, but it's there. The irony, the little quirks in Jojo's life, the absurdity of fighting to prove you're alive. It makes the book relatable and entertaining. Survival and adaptation. Jojo goes from clerk to electrician to family man. Life keeps changing and he keeps adjusting. Identity and modernity. Ghana moving from old traditions to new realities. Beauty standards, family structures, gender roles. Power and politics, military rule, corruption, civil service inefficiency, and how ordinary people navigate all that. Friendship and love. Jojo's bonds with George, Karl, and eventually Mina show the human need for connection even in chaos. Bill Okyere Marshall was born in 1936 in Ghana. He's a dramatist and novelist, educated in Presbyterian schools before heading to London's Guildhall School of Music and Drama. He studied television, spent time in the United States, and wrote plays like The Son of Umbali in 1973. He later became head of the National Film and Television Institute in Accra and a lecturer at the University of Ghana's School of Performing Arts. Marshall wasn't just a novelist. He wrote for radio, TV, and theater. His influences include Ibsen and Chekhov, and his works often suggest that life isn't something you can fully explain or control. There's always mystery. Apart from Permit for Survival, he wrote Bukom in 1979 and several plays that explored Ghanaian life and identity. So, if you're in the mood for a book that starts with wild chaos, like attending your own funeral, and then takes you on a journey through love, friendship, and the hustle of life in Ghana during the 70s and 80s, Permit for Survival or Brother Man might just be the survival permit you need on your bookshelf. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.